The ancient scrolls whisper of a war to end all wars, a final, cataclysmic confrontation centered on the hills of Israel. This isn't the plot of a Hollywood blockbuster. It's a 2,600-year-old prophecy foretold in stunning detail. A prophecy that, according to some interpretations, may not just be on the horizon, but is a storm whose first winds we are already feeling. What if the daily news, the shifting alliances, the very ground beneath our feet, is unknowingly playing a part in setting this divine stage? The prophet Ezekiel laid out a scenario so specific, so geographically precise that for centuries, scholars and laymen alike have tried to decipher its meaning. He spoke of a great northern confederacy, led by a mysterious figure named Gog, descending upon the land of Israel in the latter days. The question we must confront is not just if this prophecy will unfold, but if the gears are already in motion. Are your actions, your beliefs, your very existence in this era somehow contributing to the fulfillment of the words of Ezekiel chapter 38? Have you, inadvertently, become an actor in the grand, unfolding drama of Gog and Magog? If you're ready to delve into the depths of ancient prophecy and explore how it might be shaping our world today, before we journey further into this fascinating and complex subject, take a moment to click the like button and subscribe to our channel. Your support allows us to continue bringing you content that challenges the mind and explores the profound connections between history, faith, and the future. The prophecy of Ezekiel 38 is one of the most debated and analyzed passages in the entire Hebrew Bible. It describes a future invasion of the land of Israel by a coalition of nations led by Gog of the land of Magog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal. This text has captivated the imagination of religious thinkers for millennia, not only for its dramatic portrayal of a final battle, but for its promise of a divine intervention that will reveal the greatness of the God of Israel to the entire world. To truly grasp the weight of this prophecy, we must first transport ourselves back to the time of Ezekiel. He was a priest, living among the Jewish exiles in Babylon during the 6th century BCE. The first temple, the heart of Jewish spiritual life in Jerusalem, had been destroyed. The people were displaced, their national identity shattered. It was in this context of despair and uncertainty that Ezekiel delivered his visions. His prophecies served a dual purpose. They were a stark warning of judgment, but also a powerful message of hope and future restoration. The prophecy begins with a divine command to Ezekiel. "Son of man, set your face against Gog, of the land of Magog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal. Prophesy against him." The identity of Gog and the land of Magog has been a subject of intense speculation for centuries. The names themselves are ancient, and their precise historical identification is challenging. Josephus, the first-century Jewish historian, associated Magog with the Scythians, a nomadic people from the north of the Black Sea. This northern attribution has remained a consistent theme in many interpretations. Throughout history, various leaders and nations have been identified as the potential fulfillment of this prophecy. In rabbinic literature, Gog and Magog are often seen as symbolic representations of the ultimate enemies of Israel who will emerge at the end of days. In more modern times, interpreters have pointed to various northern powers, with Russia being a frequent candidate due to its geographical location north of Israel and its historical antagonism towards the Jewish state. The text describes Gog as a chief prince, or, in some translations, the Prince of Rosh, which has further fueled the identification with Russia. But Gog does not act alone. Ezekiel lists a formidable coalition of allies who will join in this invasion. These include Persia, Cush, and Put, Gomer and all its troops, and the house of Togarmah from the far north with all its troops, many peoples with you. Identifying these ancient names with modern nations is the ancient name for modern-day Iran. This connection is particularly potent given the current geopolitical climate and Iran's vocal and active hostility towards Israel. Cush and Put are generally associated with nations in northeastern Africa, possibly corresponding to modern Sudan, Ethiopia, or Libya. Gomer and Togarmah are often linked to ancient peoples in the region of Anatolia, which is modern-day described, Turkey. Therefore, is a vast confederacy of nations from the north and south, united in their intent to attack Israel. The text emphasizes the military might of this coalition, describing them as a great company and a mighty army, all riding on horses, a great horde with shields and bucklers, all of them wielding swords. The imagery is one of overwhelming force, a seemingly unstoppable tide of destruction aimed at the heart of the Jewish homeland. The timing of this invasion is crucial. The prophecy states that it will happen in the latter years, or the end of days. This is a recurring phrase in biblical prophecy, denoting a future era of great significance, often associated with the coming of the Messiah and the final judgment. Furthermore, the attack is to occur when the Jewish people have been gathered from many nations and are living in a land that has been restored from the sword. The prophecy describes them as living in safety, in unwalled villages, feeling secure and at peace. This description of a restored Israel, with its people gathered from the diaspora and dwelling in their ancestral homeland, is a powerful resonance for the modern state of Israel. The establishment of Israel in 1948 and the subsequent waves of Jewish immigration from all corners of the globe are seen by many as a direct fulfillment of this prerequisite for the Gog and Magog War. The idea of Israel dwelling in safety might seem contradictory given its turbulent history, but some interpretations suggest this could refer to a future period of relative peace or a false sense of security that precedes the surprise attack. The motivation for Gog's invasion is also explicitly stated in the text. It is not a war of religious ideology, but one of greed and plunder. God says through Ezekiel that Gog will think an evil thought. I will go up against the land of unwalled villages. I will go to a people at rest, that dwell safely, all of them dwelling without walls, and having neither bars nor gates, to take a spoil, and to take a prey. The target is the wealth and resources of the restored nation of Israel. This has led to modern interpretations that consider economic factors, such as Israel's recent discoveries of natural gas reserves or its technological prowess, as potential catalysts for such an invasion. The prophecy also mentions Sheba and Dedan, and the merchants of Tarshish, with all the young lions thereof, who will question Gog's motives, asking, "Have you come to take a spoil?" These entities are often identified with nations in the Arabian Peninsula and possibly Western powers who will act as observers or passive objectors to the invasion, rather than active participants in Israel's defense. The central and most awe-inspiring part of the prophecy is not the might of the invading army, but the divine response it provokes. Just as this massive coalition descends upon the mountains of Israel, God intervenes directly and decisively. The text declares, "And it shall come to pass at the same time when Gog shall come against the land of Israel, says the Lord God, that my fury shall come up in my face." This is not a battle fought by human armies alone. It is a moment of divine revelation, where the God of Israel demonstrates his power before the eyes of the world. The prophecy describes a series of cataclysmic events that will decimate Gog's forces. These include a great earthquake in the land of Israel, where the mountains shall be thrown down and the steep places shall fall. There will be infighting among the invading armies, as every man's sword shall be against his brother. Divine judgment will rain down in the form of pestilence and with blood, and an overflowing rain and great hailstones, fire and brimstone. The destruction of Gog's army is described as absolute and overwhelming. The purpose of this divine intervention is made explicitly clear. "Thus will I magnify myself and sanctify myself, and I will be known in the eyes of many nations, and they shall know that I am the Lord. The war of Gog and Magog is, therefore, not primarily about Israel's military victory, but about the sanctification of God's name, Kiddush Hashem, on a global scale. It is a divine lesson to a world that has either forgotten or denied the God of Israel. The aftermath of the battle is described in graphic detail. The number of the dead will be so immense that it will take the house of Israel 7 months to bury them all, in order to cleanse the land. A specific place, the Valley of Haman-Gog, the Valley of the Multitude of Gog, will be designated for this mass burial. The weapons of the defeated army will be so plentiful that they will provide fuel for the inhabitants of Israel for 7 years. This vivid imagery underscores the sheer scale of the victory and the completeness of the enemy's annihilation. The prophecy of Ezekiel 38 does not exist in isolation. It is followed by chapter 39, which reiterates and expands upon the details of Gog's defeat and its consequences. Furthermore, it sets the stage for the final chapters of Ezekiel's book, which describe the vision of a new, future temple in Jerusalem and a restored, sanctified land. This broader context is crucial for understanding the ultimate purpose of the Gog and Magog war. It is not an end in itself, but a necessary precursor to the final convulsion of a world order based on human power and rebellion against God, paving the way for a new era where the divine presence is openly manifest. For Jewish eschatology, this event is intrinsically linked to the Messianic era. While the details and sequencing of events are subject to much debate among rabbinic sources, the war of Gog and Magog is widely seen as the final, great conflict that will precede the ultimate redemption. It is the birth pangs of the Messianic age, a period of turmoil and upheaval that gives way to a time of unparalleled peace, justice, and spiritual knowledge. In Jewish tradition, the study of these prophecies is not merely an academic exercise. It is a source of faith and encouragement, particularly in times of persecution and uncertainty. The knowledge that, despite the formidable forces that may rise up against the Jewish people, the ultimate victory belongs to God, has been a cornerstone of Jewish resilience for centuries. The prayers and liturgy often contain echoes of this hope for a future redemption, a time when God's sovereignty will be universally acknowledged. There is also a deep sense of national and spiritual responsibility associated with these prophecies. The return to the land, the rebuilding of the nation, and the adherence to Torah values are seen as not just a historical imperative, but as a necessary step in the unfolding of this divine plan. Living in the land of Israel today, for many religious Jews, is a conscious act of participating in this prophetic fulfillment. It is a testament to the enduring covenant between God and the Jewish people, and a preparation for the final act of this cosmic drama. The question then returns to us in the 21st century. Are we fulfilling Ezekiel 38? When we look at the world map, we see a configuration that is strikingly similar to the one described by the prophet. A powerful nation to the far north of Israel, with a history of expansionist ambitions. A nation to the east, ancient Persia, now Iran, which openly calls for Israel's destruction and is actively pursuing nuclear capabilities. Alliances are shifting in the Middle East, creating new and unpredictable dynamics. Israel, a nation reborn after nearly 2 millennia of exile, finds itself once again at the center of global attention and conflict. The technological advancements, the economic developments, the very existence of a sovereign Jewish state in its ancestral homeland all seem to align with the prerequisites laid out in the ancient text. It is a sobering thought to consider that the political maneuvers, the military buildups, and the ideological clashes that we witness daily could be the very movements that are setting the stage for this prophesied war. However, it is crucial to approach this topic with humility and caution. The interpretation of prophecy is not an exact science. Throughout history, many have been quick to assign specific contemporary identities to the figures and nations mentioned in these ancient texts, only to be proven wrong by the passage of time. The purpose of prophecy is not to provide a detailed roadmap of the future that allows us to predict specific dates or events. Rather, it is to reveal the overarching principles of God's plan for humanity, to offer a moral and spiritual compass, and to provide hope in times of darkness. The prophecy of Gog and Magog is a powerful reminder that history is not a random series of events, but a purposeful narrative guided by a divine hand. It challenges us to look beyond the immediate headlines and to consider the deeper spiritual forces at play in the world. For the Jewish people, the implications are profound. The prophecy serves as both a warning and a promise. A warning that the path to redemption may be fraught with peril and that a great and final test may yet await the nation, but also a promise of ultimate deliverance and vindication. It reinforces the central tenets of Jewish faith, the eternal nature of the covenant, the centrality of the land of Israel in the divine plan, and the ultimate triumph of God's justice and sovereignty. It encourages a life of faith, of adherence to the commandments, and of prayer for the coming of the final redemption. The Jewish approach to eschatology is not one of passive waiting, but of active participation through ethical living and the performance of mitzvot, commandments. It is a belief that by perfecting the world through acts of goodness and kindness, humanity can hasten the arrival of the Messianic era. Furthermore, the story of Gog and Magog has the ultimate outcome of the battle is the revelation of God to all the nations of the world. It is a vision of a future where humanity as a whole comes to recognize the one true God, leading to an era of universal peace and harmony. This is the ultimate goal of history, according to the prophetic tradition. The final, terrible war gives way to an enduring global peace. The clash of armies is replaced by a shared understanding of divine truth. This is the hopeful vision that lies at the heart of Ezekiel's prophecy. It is a message that, even in the face of the most daunting and terrifying prospects, there is a promise of a brighter future, a world redeemed and perfected under divine sovereignty. So, as we observe the complex and often troubling events of our time, the prophecy of Ezekiel 38 offers a unique lens through which to view them. It invites us to consider the possibility that we are living in a truly momentous era, a time of prophetic convergence. It challenges us to reflect on our own role in this unfolding story. Are we contributing to a world of conflict and greed, the very motivations that drive Gog and his coalition? Or are we striving to build a world based on justice, compassion, and faith, the very values that will characterize the era that follows the final battle? The ancient words of the prophet Ezekiel, delivered to a small community of exiles in Babylon thousands of years ago, continue to resonate with uncanny relevance in our modern world. They echo through the corridors of power, they are whispered in the halls of synagogues, and they challenge each of us to consider our place in the grand sweep of history. The stage is set, the actors are in place, and the ancient prophecy of the final war for the land of Israel awaits its hour. The question remains not if, but when the curtain will rise.